If you want news and rumors that appeal, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. If you want news and rumors that appeal, welcome to the Dusty Wheel.
Hey, welcome back to the Dusty Wheel. I'm your host, the Innkeeper, and this is our live call-in talk show all about the Wheel of Time. Now, tonight is a WOT Wednesday episode. It's a fun one. We're going to dive deep into the theories around the one power, the true power, and other powers in the Wheel of Time. And beyond that, though, before I bring my guests in, I want to, tell you a few things that have happened today, a few things that are coming up. First of all, we saw this really cool Minecraft image done by a fan. He posted it to Instagram. His son had put this together. Thank you so much. It was so cool to see that and wake up the next day on Tuesday, I think it was, when it went out. That was a lot of fun. I can't wait to see what it looks like inside the inn. That's what I want to see next. And by the way, tomorrow we're coming back for another episode. This week we finally hit the 5,000 subscriber mark, and that's due to everyone that's watching us and sharing and talking about the show. So we're going to do a special live stream, Ask Me Anything kind of gig. We'll do some fun giveaways. You know how it is. I like to celebrate. And then this Sunday, when normally today would have been our live adaptation, we're doing it on Sunday afternoon. We're going to have a special guest. His name's Elliot. He's from the Thread magazine. He's from out in the United Kingdom. So we're kind of playing along with his availability and time. We want it so he can be awake and actually enjoy a live adaptation. So we're going to continue with part 6 with him. If you go check out that video, we have it kind of prepped. He actually did a couple of reviews so far for Thread. His adaptation one was a lot of fun. You should go check that out. So that is what we're going to have happen here Thursday and Sunday. Hopefully you'll be with us. But with that said, let me bring my guests into the show. Welcome, Tyler and Lauren. Hey, Tyler, how you doing? Wave to the audience, Tyler.
Hi, everyone.
This is Great Lord of the Dark. He's back from the day. I've known him so long from Theoryland, and he is the perfect guest to compliment Lauren and I because he loves this stuff just as much as both of us do. And up in the corner there, you see Lauren from the Unraveling the Pattern YouTube channel. Lauren, thank you so much for being here. Hopefully all of you that are watching have actually seen Lauren's videos. If you haven't, go check out his channel. It's in the description. This is the third deep dive, the non-spoiler third deep dive, right? If I remember correctly, or is this number 2?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So this one is amazing. And before we start breaking down theories, before we start going into everything that you showed and having fun with some of what the fans brought up on social media, let's show everyone a short clip of that video. Enjoy.
This energy that churns the Wheel of Time is called the True Source. From the True Source comes the One Power, which can be used by some people as a type of magic within the world of the Wheel of Time. Think of the True Source as a spring or well of infinite power. This spring is divided into 2 halves, which flow like 2 rivers from its source. The channelers are like a water wheel that pulls water, or in this case, the One Power, from the river of the True Source. When a channeler does hold the power, they can then channel it or divide it into flows or threads of power. The channeler can then weave the flows together like a quilt or pattern to create different magical actions. Think of these flows as streams of power dividing off from the main river of the source. Think of the channeler who taps into the river of the true source as a sort of prism that is filled with light, or the one power. When they access the one power, it's like a single beam of pure light, but they are then able to divide and focus that power into 5 different individual types of power, like separate light frequencies that can be used individually or mixed together for various functions.
And that is why Lauren is so well known now from his YouTube channel. He puts so much effort, and I'm talking about you, Lauren, right here. I'm talking to the audience here. You put so much effort into these videos. I really appreciate that you care that much to make that interesting, entertaining, not just for us who have read the books for a long time, but for all the fans, new fans that are going to be coming in because of the TV series. Like, I can't wait until some of these people see these. It's going to be, I bet they're going to think that the studio put some of this together, maybe until they get to the memes.
Yeah.
They'll be like, wait, I really appreciate you doing that. And it's a perfect kind of setup for what we're going to do tonight. For those of you that are watching, tonight is a spoiler kind of night. So tomorrow, I promise, if you want to come back, we won't do any spoilers or really light spoilers. But tonight is certainly a heavy spoiler night. We're going to be talking about the foundation of the Wheel of Time. And we'll go up into the things that happened right to the end of A Memory of Light. So if you're here, please, know that we apologize if you're sticking around, because we're gonna break some news for you in that case. So, with that being said, I thought one of the first interesting things that I want to bring up is this idea of other powers. Before we jump back to the whole true power, one power thing everyone knows really well, I want to ask this question to both of you. Do you believe that Robert Jordan intended for other ages to have kind of that traditional, natural magic in his worlds, like not channeling the way we know it? Do you believe that he kind of set this up to enable us to have that maybe old fantasy magic that we're all used to?
Sort of.
Sort of.
I mean, he wanted to tell the story about channeling and the third age. The other stuff was, I think, less interesting to him, but he did set up a whole bunch of possibilities of stories being told in ages where there's different combinations of powers available. Some of the ones that rely on channeling or the ability to use channeling that's used in different ways might show up in different conjunctions. You have ages with wolf brothers, but nothing else. You have ages with portal stones, but no channeling. There's all kinds of different ways of mixing these together. So I think he played with the idea like that there were probably infinite possibilities, but his goal was really to talk about channeling and how that all fits together with humanity.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think this idea that was the focus, but he does tell us, right? He tells us there are other ages where channeling doesn't exist, right? That isn't the story he wanted to tell to us, but we know that of the 7 ages, it doesn't exist in other, and he mentions ages. So I want to bring this up and have you react, Lauren, and you can kind of answer that first one, but I want you to react to this quote. It's a quote that we've actually brought up before. We did our deep dive. It's about more death. And let's see, Taylor, can you throw that quote up about more death? And it was a question that I had asked Brandon. And it was, is Mordeth's power, this evil power, comparable to the one power and true power? Is it a power that can be woven? And Brandon said, no, it's more something along the lines of Perrin's wolf power, something more natural. You couldn't weave Mordeth. It's more of a natural, though it is unnatural, it's an unnatural, natural thing. Let's say more instinctual, all right? I love how Brandon described that. It's an unnatural, natural thing, which sounds a lot like maybe some kind of demonic magic, right? It has like some type of earth magic, if you will. How do you react to that when you hear that quote and we know about the things that basically that Mordeth could do? You think of the fog and these type of things. Lauren, do you think that is kind of old traditional magic showing up in the Wheel of Time?
Yeah, I mentioned this in my video that at least the one power and the true source is a hard magic system, right? In fantasy terms, it's got rules, it has limitations, it's pretty clearly defined. When it comes to things like Mashadar and other things, it's funny that Brandon answered it that way, because Brandon is a big fan of hard magic systems. He's all about the rules, and he likes to play in that area where there are limitations to his magic systems. He likes to play around with that a lot. And so it's interesting to hear him try to explain a softer magic system, something that has, fewer rules, that's a little more just kind of like feeling, I guess. And to me, that's a great example of what Mashadar is. It's a fog. It's kind of a wind. It's hard to grasp. It's kind of, it's more of like a natural elemental kind of a thing. And so, yeah, I think that's Brandon's way of trying to say it's a soft magic system, right? The rules aren't as clearly defined.
I like how Joe said it's possibly black magic, right? It has this kind of essence, and it's there. And that's what I find is interesting about this. We always talk about the hard magic system that's here, but this soft magic system was there from the very beginning too, right? They run into this in book 1, and it evolves. And that's the fun part about, I know people don't like how the books end with this character, I get it, but in the end of the day, like it does evolve. It seems to grow. It morphs, and it doesn't seem to have any rules behind it that we're aware of. And I love that that's already baked into Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time, right? So when he says there are ages where channeling doesn't exist, that still leaves open the possibility that there are ages where the soft magic systems or the soft powers do exist. And so there's that aspect to this that just broadens the scope of the Wheel of Time and what's possible in this world, well beyond, I think, that the defined parameters that I like to that we all like to ask Jordan for, like, what's the rule here? Well, none of us really paid too much attention to asking about the rules of this power. And I wonder if he would have tried to give us some, or if he wouldn't have. Maybe he just raff with those. Here, go ahead. I don't know if you were going to say something.
I was going to say, he definitely, when it came to Padam Fane, he rarely was very open, right? I mean, he intended to have some answers, I think, later, and whether or not we got those is up for debate, I suppose. But I like the idea of placing other types of fantasy or sci-fi or other types of stories into the world of the Wheel of Time in different ages. I think that's a fun thing to think about. I mean, it's kind of like fan fiction territory, right, to some degree. But that's kind of a fun concept. What I wonder is, okay, in our current age, if we live in the first age, the one power, we know that the one power is something that some people have access to without being taught, right? And we can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, no, this is a good transition. Yeah.
Where are those people in the first age? Is it possible that access to the one power is somehow cut off? That there is, similar to imprisoning the Dark One and having no longer access to the true power, is this the same for the one power in some ages?
Yeah, so this is a good question. This is what you have to think about it this way. There is a genetic component to it, a physical genetic component, and then there also is a component at the soul level. And so both of those pieces have to be there. Jordan wasn't specific if the genetic component on the physical side existed the entire first age. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Tyler. I don't think he ever gave us that answer. It's clear that it had to be there at the end of the first age. As far as we know, there is a quote that talks about how that's kind of how the first age ended. So whether or not it was there the entire time, that's an open question. We don't know that, because he talks about discovering channeling. Does that mean somebody never accessed the ability a little bit? Just like, dreamed themselves barely into tel'aran'rhiod just for a second and then came back out. Because I want to bring this up because we had one of the fans show up in Discord, and he did ask this question, made this comment that maybe the oneness was or is a kind of a form of its own power. And this is something he brought up. I didn't go look for the quote, but he mentioned that Tam talks about not even having to aim right at the end of the series. He can just shoot the bow, and he's able to do this without having to concentrate. And this idea being that maybe and I think his question was, is it somehow kind of pulling from tel'aran'rhiod? Is there some kind of other access to some ability with the oneness? But I wanted to throw these quotes up there because I wanted to kind of morph this theory and ask you both about this idea of the oneness and possibly the first channeler. So let me put up the first quote for oneness. Let me read this one off to you. This is a paraphrased one. This is from Robert Jordan, 1995. He said, "The flame in the void," he said, "was mainly a concentration technique, but one very close to the techniques used for teaching men to contact the one power. So Robert Jordan gives us kind of maybe a clue there, right? Connecting the whole oneness idea to channeling. Let's show the second oneness quote here that might help us kind of broaden that. Taylor, can you show quote number 2 for oneness? So we have Isabel, who asked Robert Jordan in 2005 DragonCon, somebody who is not born with a spark but is born with the ability to learn, could they begin channeling unconsciously? Robert Jordan said, no, they could not. They would have to make a conscious effort. They could make a conscious effort without a teacher and maybe succeed. But without a teacher, they've got a very small chance of actually doing it. I don't think that that's really well known among fandom. The assumption is learners, just by the name, like you have to learn, you have to be taught to do it. And he's saying you can consciously attempt to do it. Now, this last quote here for oneness, it was in 2005 when he was asked, who are the first channelers and how did they learn? By trial and error? Are there any ages where channeling does not exist? And Robert Jordan says, the first people to discover the ability to channel learned through trial and error with fairly high casualty rates until they learned enough to not kill themselves accidentally. Their appearance marked the beginning of the previous age to that of the books, or at least the end of the age before that one. So I thought it was a fun kind of mix of these ideas. So my proposition to you both is that the first channelers could have been using the oneness, and that's how they connected to the one power for the first time. What do you think about that, Tyler? Is that do you think those things connect? Do you think Robert Jordan is leading us down that path?
I think they do connect, and I think it's not just the two things that you mentioned. I think I'm going to call them 3 areas of magic in this series, and a lot of the metaphysics we'll talk about later might get into that, but there's some that are just manipulating natural laws where you're sucking fire out of something or lifting water out of the river or whatever. There's ones that have to do with the soul, and those are kind of the metaphysical ones we've argued about a lot in the past, all your transmigration and what does Mashadar really do when it eats your soul and Mash and Shin and all that. And then there's the other ones that are related to willpower, which is kind of this oneness component. Like this involves things like dreaming. It involves Rand being able to light his pipe. It involves some aspects of the true power or even turning other people to the shadow. There's some powers are based only on willpower, and that's more of a mental magic as opposed to the metaphysical soul magic or the physical nature magic that most of the stuff that we see in the series relates to. So I think it makes sense that like a lot of the things that we see relate to maybe the interaction between 2 of these different areas. And it makes sense that if you have the genetic component for one, you can learn to do the other, but only if you happen to have a soul that had it in that age. There's 3 different overlapping things. And I think the physical ability, the willpower, and the soul all interact in different ways to create the different types of magic we're seeing.
Yeah, and I want to address Thomas just made this comment, which doesn't that assume that if it was a man who touched the one power first, what if it was a woman? Yeah, I don't think Jordan ever clarifies if it was a man or a woman. So yes, this would certainly suggest, although I don't know that the oneness is really from a meditation, mind, will, control, really gendered in that way. But yes, he mentioned it as far as connecting the two to how men learn to channel. But yeah, no, that's a good call out, Thomas. Lauren, what do you think about this idea of connecting this kind of concept of the willpower necessary to consciously access the one power and potentially connecting these 2 capabilities together?
Well, I have to say, I love the breakdown of the sort of 3 areas, how the magic works. That's really fascinating to me. That's not something I thought about before. I'm just excited to be a part of the conversation. This is this is a little deep for me in some ways, and I like that.
Well, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, this is a good transition. I saw one of our viewers say, "Yes, bring on the metaphysics."
Yeah,
because this is a good question. Like bringing the oneness to the one power and true power, and I thought this is a really good transition to these 2 powers, what we know about the Dark One. And I want to throw this out to everybody in chat. How is it that you think the Dark One stops his minions from using the true power? And I want you to think about this as from a functional standpoint. I don't mean, well, he gets to choose. I mean, the Dark One is in his prison, and one would assume that he has some access to the world, and that I guess it's my assumption here that you can't channel the true power without the boar, right? If the boar is sealed completely, I would believe, I don't think we have any, some facts to say that this is true, but I would believe you could not channel the true power, that the access to the true power is happening through the boar. Would you agree with that, both of you?
Yeah. When you say sealed, I assume you mean completely.
Yes.
Healed,
I mean completely healed, like before the boar or after. Yes. Fourth age, first age kind of thing.
I agree with that. I think when the Dark One is not touching the pattern in any way, there's no access to the true power. What are your thoughts, Tyler?
Yeah, I mean, like throughout the third age at various points, we saw where Ishmael came closer to touching stuff. Presumably he was using the true power at that time. So I think it does have to be a complete prison where he's completely sealed off from the world, as opposed to the patch that Lews Therin put on.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
One thing that's fascinating about the true power versus the one power is we know that the true power comes directly from the Dark One. Now, Robert Jordan was asked, are the Dark One and the true power the same thing? And or something to that effect. I don't have the quote in front of me. But basically he said they're not the same thing. It's not like you're channeling the Dark One, right? But the true power comes from the Dark One. So that's fascinating to me. When you mentioned how does the Dark One sort of control it, I imagine the Dark One's like a cow with udders, and he's just turning on and off the valves to the Forsaken as needed,
But see, that's the interesting part, right? He can only channelers can channel the true power. We know that to be a fact. Mm-hmm. So you have to have the ability to channel. It's not like something it's not like he can just bring anybody in and say, here's the true power, you can channel it. So that seems a clear definition that he's using the same mechanism that exists in that person's body and soul to be able to do this. It's not only just the body having the genetics, the soul has to have the ability to channel for him to give him access to the true power, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what I mean by how is the Dark One? The Dark One has to, right? I saw the word, I think tethered is a great word that I saw in chat. He definitely does tether himself somehow. He's able to manipulate the same mechanism in the soul that the wheel is enabling, right? For the one power to come into that soul and then go through the body and out. So it's interesting that he can, right? He's, I'm trying to think of what the right word is. Adapt isn't the right word, but it's like,
well, I think I know what is happening here. Like it's the same as when you open yourself to touching the true power. You're channeling Sidar, you open yourself up, you picture yourself as a bud, and you can feel the true source. You're able to manipulate reality, but the true power doesn't work by manipulating, by using the natural forces. You're usually doing some damage to the pattern. You're tearing holes, you're warping stuff, you're basically shoving your way in and getting what you want. And the way that you open yourself up to the true power, and the reason why he favors some people over others with it, has to do with selfishness. When you open yourself up to selfishness, you can channel more of the true power. Selfishness is what he values above everything in his Forsaken. So it stands to reason that, the most selfish of all is Moradin, who wants to destroy everything to satisfy his own emotional trauma. So the more selfish you are, the more you are opened up. And it is the same mechanism, as you say, like the same genetic mechanism or whatever it is in your brain that lets you do it. But it's a different thing. It has to do with your willpower again. And it really is your desire to put yourself ahead of all other considerations.
I mean, Lauren, do you think but it seems like a kind of a ridiculous notion. Like he's just waiting there, like Moradin needs it. Give him some more access, right? I mean, maybe he's just like, he has like settings and he's like Moradin, you can have a little bit more. This person has nothing. Yeah. I'm trying to understand it just seems like a really strange concept that he's constantly like capable of just kind of turning it off and turning it back off at will. Basically, like, I don't know, like you said, like his udders, or it just has like a fountain, he turns on and off. I don't know. It's a strange one. I've always just accepted it as the reality of how this works, but I just think about
to him. To me, it's kind of like his attention. When there are moments when Basilmon seems to be channeling what seems to be the true power, and he says things like, Shaitan, aid me. And it's almost like the blackness around him swells or grows. It's almost like there's a focus required, that Shaitan's attention is drawn to that. Another thing that I was thinking about is, if we're imagining this pattern of threads, and the shadow or the Dark One is sort of touching it, or maybe there's a barrier between him and it to some degree. But I imagine like these taut chords on a guitar or something, and it's like he's just very lightly trying to brush his fingers across that, you know. And maybe every once in a while, one of those chords shows selfishness or evil or something to that effect that does draw his attention, and he is able to kind of hyper focus in on that. You know, when Rand fights the Dark One, and this is filled with spoilers, obviously, right? But
this is spoilers, everyone. If you're still here, if you remember, we can throw up the spoiler thing again, Taylor, just to remind people. Like, this is the end of the books, so if you're still here and you didn't want to know, go ahead.
But when Rand fights the Dark One in the end, there's a moment when he pulls the Dark One into the pattern a bit, and he sees the Dark One for what it is, and it's sort of like this wretched thing. It seems so epic and difficult to quantify when it's out there outside of the pattern. But when it's pulled in, it's an entity. He senses that it's small in Rand's eyes. So yeah. I do think that the Dark One somehow is sort of touching everything, but not influencing everything, if that makes any sort of sense. And maybe he just focuses that as he chooses.
I love that whole like Shaitan like Balsamon calling for it, almost this concept. I thought someone asked a question. I'll have to go back and look that one up afterwards. I think someone asked a question about that. But yeah, this idea that you can kind of get his attention and he can kind of like up your access, like, oh shoot, Morden needs help, you know. And
it's kind of like the Eye of Sauron, right? It's like the evil's there, but you got to get its attention, and then it focuses in on you. One thing I want to point out that is not entirely related to this discussion, but something I've been wondering, for the TV show, do you think they should change the name of the true power? I would be interested to see what chat thinks. And if
everybody that's watching us, sorry, I didn't make a call out to everybody. So everybody that's watching us on Twitter, Facebook, let's, you know, throw a comment in here. You know, do you think they should change the name? You know, One Power, True Power, right? Do we want them to call it something else, even though it would change canon? So give me a thumbs up, thumbs down in chat if you're watching. I'm kind of curious about that. We'll see those kind of roll in here. And by the way, thank you for coming and watching tonight. This is what we do, right? We get really geeky about the Wheel of Time. If you're here, please like the video. If this is the first time you're here, please subscribe to us. And for all the new members we've had subscribe over the last 2 days, really appreciate it if you're watching this, and happy to have you here for our live shows. But yeah, back to this question. Maybe I'll throw it to Tyler first. Do you want them to change that name, or you just figured like they'll make it clear?
Have to change it if you pronounce it the Palpatine way, the true power.
That's right. Unlimited power, right? That's right.
I'm seeing a lot of no's. Not a lot of thumbs down here. So for those of you watching that are not, I can't see what you're saying on Twitter and Facebook, but yeah, most everyone here in chat is giving the thumb down. Wow.
I like One Power, Two Power.
That's good. One power, good. Two power, three power.
My thinking is, you know, this is confusing to longtime fans. I see people always confusing the two, true source versus true power. Even I sometimes accidentally say the wrong one when I mean the other one. You know, I hear it in podcasts and things. So for me, for a wider audience, there are some terms that Robert Jordan used, and that, in my opinion, could use a tweak or a change. And I know that that's sacrilege probably to some people to change, you know, some of the canon. Another thing that I really think should receive a different name is the Taint, personally.
You're going there, right? Like, you know,
I was
you're changing all canon. People are going to be like running away now.
Well, it just has some negative implications these days that maybe Robert Jordan knew, maybe he didn't. But I was talking to a coworker who knows absolutely nothing about this. And when I told them to watch my very first video, I said, I just want to warn you, I used the term taint in this video.
I like how you warned.
It's not what you think.
Oh my gosh.
You know? So
that's so great that you prefaced the taint.
I had to. I was too embarrassed.
That's so great. Okay, so I guess while we're here, Lauren forced us down this road. Now give us the answer. Do we change the name of the Taint? Give me a thumbs up if yes, and a thumbs down if no. Oh gosh. Keep the Taint, as Andrew says. Yeah, so this is both these are interesting questions. In other words, they could call it, the Dark One's power, which it is, right? In other words, that's not changing canon to not give it the official, this is the true power. In other words, the Dark One's power is very clear. I think, though, I like true power In other words, it feels more official. I just don't like calling something the dark. I even hate like the dark one and the light one. I'm just not. Yeah. I hate those kind of generic titling. Like that's why I like that we were told the creator doesn't. He's like the creator. He's just out there. He doesn't bother us. We have cooler names for stuff inside of the wheel than just creator and dark one. So leave the taint. This one's, the votes are coming in. Don't touch the dark one's taint. Keep the taint. Scratch the taint. Look at you guys having fun. This one doesn't seem as clear, but, well, yeah, it is a majority. Keep the taint. So sorry, Lauren, you tried. You're going to have to keep on telling your friends when they watch your videos to watch out for the taint. I like Megan.
Everyone about the taint.
I like Megan's hashtag stay taint. Taint or hashtag taint up. Okay, so I want the best hashtag we can get in chat while you guys are watching. Give me your best taint hashtag, but keep it relatively
cleansed.
That's what they say, right? Okay, so I want to jump back away from the taint, and let's jump back away from the naming of the true power, and I want to go to a question that a fan had, which was strength in the one power. Is it like the zodiac or a blood type or a personality? And this is a good question. So, which is Robert Jordan has said that the power is not tied to the soul. And so we know a couple things. Let's dig in to the soul body bridge. Let's go really uber geeky on the metaphysics here. For those of you that are watching, I don't know if you wanted to think about this much, but we're going to talk about all the details about channeling and stilling and gentling and how this relates to one power strength. We know a couple things about this. One, we know that the soul has a connection to the one power. We know that whether or not you're balefired or whatever it is, that soul retains that connection. So the soul will be able to, the next time it's reborn, be able to channel if it's also placed in a body that is genetically capable of channeling. So we know that soul access is important and the body access is important. Number two, we know that when you're stilled, that you still can sense the one power, but you can't channel it. So we know that connection is still there. And even when you're burned out, we know that you have not burned out your connection at your soul level to the one power. You haven't changed your soul. So then we also know that an Adam that cannot hold a child, even a child who has the spark, until that spark actually engages. And that is to say, we know that something is changing between when it's a child versus an adolescent or closer to an adult. Something is happening. Something is changing within that person's body in order to enable them to channel. And so that's why we call it the soul body bridge. Now, the reason we also double down on knowing that is when you are stilled, Nynaeve heals this, right? And we see that she uses, I believe, all of the powers in the one power, all 5, to be able to heal it. So in the end, we know that it's not just a spiritual thing. It's not just a spirit soul thing. It also is a physical bridge, right? And so I look at this and I call it kind of a metaphysical bridge, a connection between the soul and the body that in the case of being burned out is actually destroyed completely. And that's why those individuals can't, we're told that, I guess Robert Jordan raffled that question. We don't know if it can be healed. So that's one of the things I wanted to bring up, which was the question of healing burned out. And so everyone's watching in chat. Do you believe that healing have someone being burned out from the power, do you believe that can be healed? And I want to throw the question to both of you. Let's go to Tyler. Do you believe that it could be healed?
Yes. I think all of the evidence that you just brought up really points to this being that whether you're stilled or burnt out or mental, accidentally or purposefully, the damage is done to something physical in your body and not to your spiritual side. And I think that's different than what we see with some of the monsters series. Like when we talk about the forgers, seasoning blades with a soul, when we look at the gray men who give away their soul, if they had the ability to channel, something has happened to them on the soul side. Their bodies are not physically really changed, except in as much as their soul's been affected by it. But all of these things on that side relate to the damage or something happening to the soul, whether it's Mashadar or Mashin Shin eating it, the Finns, pulling away some of your ability to channel, whatever it is. All of those things are really on the soul side, whereas what we see when the one power does it to you, it's really on the physical side. So it seems totally fine to me that we could find a way to heal that with other physical abilities. It's not like, any other disability that we can't build prostheses for or other things. You just find the right combination of threads. You get preferably a man and a woman working together to do an even better fine-tuned job and get in there and do your surgery. And you have people who can channel again and maybe even find a way to give channeling to people who might not have been born with it.
Yeah, I'm very much in agreement with that. What do you think, Lauren?
Well, first of all, that was amazing. when you said, Matt, we know A, B, C, D, I was like, we know that? Some of that stuff is new to me. This is really, really interesting for me. The idea that it's a sort of physical part of your body, like an organ or a gland in the brain or something that can be physically accessed and healed, or a surgery could be applied to improve it or change it, or even what was it you said? Previous enhanced. Oh
yeah, that's the question we're going to get to next. Yeah, because I want to know. Let's tackle this idea, because I think Tyler, you brought this up. Men and women working together in the Age of Legends were always said they could almost pretty much bring somebody back from the dead, right? Like close enough.
But
right?
they couldn't they couldn't heal stilling, right?
It's something that they had not tried, right? It's that whole concept of, you think it can't be done, so you don't do it, right? And Nynaeve doesn't even right in the moment of, she's just doing it, right? Like, it's not like she's like, this is what I have thought about, how exactly I'm going to do this. It just happens for her in many ways, but it's that whole moment for her. But she does, what her experiences suggest that it should be possible. That is to say, let's say from a surgical standpoint, they could study that soul-body bridge that's being repaired from gentling and stilling. And if they could study that and understand how that connection's created, then it does suggest that they could eventually figure out how to recreate that soul-body bridge. Now, it could be that once that's broken, that somehow, finding the spot in the soul where that connection needs to happen, maybe there's just something that's completely beyond the scope there. But it does. I think it's a solid theory that it can happen. But I want to bring this up. Okay, so we the soul-body bridge, and you brought this up, Lauren. We have the soul-body bridge concept, and we also know that when Swan and Leanne were healed, they could not access as much of the one power. They couldn't channel as much, right? But they could channel some. So that suggests the opposite, in my opinion, which is it suggests that if you can limit it more, right, that suggests somebody could purposely go in from a surgical standpoint and limit the amount of channeling you can do. Does it also suggest they could augment it? That if you understood that soul-body bridge, you could potentially augment the amount of one power. So I'm going to ask everybody in chat. This is one of our fun kind of deep dives where I like to ask and see what everybody thinks. Do you think that if they studied it long enough and understood this soul-body connection and how the healing of stilling and gentling works, that you could use similar techniques and augment your bandwidth, in essence, right? The amount of power that you can access through that bridge. So I'm kind of curious. Give me a thumbs up if you think that that's a yes or no. And I think, Tyler, what did you, when I posed this idea to you once, you're like, yes, Lanfear.
Lanfear is first in line to get her augments.
Channeling enhancement. That's right, Badger. This idea of augmenting channeling, I think, is a fun one. So, by the way, for those of you that are watching, this is a live call-in talk show. If this is the first time you've ever seen this, we take calls from those that are in chat. I mean, if anyone wants to give us a call, Taylor, let's throw the number up to call us here. It's 1-313-825-5968. That's 1-313-TALK-WOT. It's only available during the show. You can give us a call if you agree, disagree, you want to give us your favorite Taint hashtag, whatever it is we've said tonight. You want to talk, you want to say hi to Lauren and tell him you think his work is amazing. You can even call and do that. So feel free to give us a call. We'll pull you into the call and chat with you while we do this. But jumping back to this concept of, by the way, as I go through, seeing a bunch of people, seeing lots of good questions, lots of thumbs up. You can tell that maybe people are like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, I've never thought of this. I have to say, we know that Moraine did have that ability sort of siphoned away. So that's the first time when I'd really considered, well, yeah, why not take it in the opposite direction, like flexing a muscle or something. We know that there is a limit to channelers. At a certain point, there's like a cap, right, that they can't seem to pass. Yep. But maybe if there was some way to figure out how to enhance that organ or whatever it is, that it could be possible. I have to point out 2 hilarious taint hashtags really quick.
Good, bring them.
Say a taint so.
That's a good one.
And tainted love.
Tainted love. Really good. Yeah. Nice. Those are really good. Yeah, I want to address one comment. Jake mentioned. He said, I think it has to do with the strength of the soul. That's at least my knee jerk. We know that the strength of power, we do know if it's a fact that it's not connected to the soul. So that aspect we do know. What we don't know is if there's just a max limit. In other words, there is obviously some limit before that burns out, but it's different for everyone, right? How much you pull in. So maybe there is just, maybe augmenting your channeling bridge would just be one of those recipes for likely burning out, right? Like if they were able to do it, we'd probably have a lot more people that are just burning out more often. So we have a lot of callers coming in. It's good to see that happen. We'll bring them in just a second. Now, we did have a question about, or it wasn't a question. I want to bring this one up because I want this to, I don't think most people have seen this quote. So, Taylor, can you throw us up the quantum quote? I think this is a really fun one to bring to this discussion. And I just heard this one last night. Regarding the one power, in a universal sense, like your physics background, is it more of a force like gravity would be, weak electromagnetic and strong electromagnetic, or is it something more of on a quantum level? Is it on a quantum level in your universe, or is it a macro power? And Robert Jordan said, I think you're going to have to think of it as being on a quantum level. Now, I know nothing about physics, so but that tells us something about how Robert Jordan perceives the one power. And I bet, and I'd love to see somebody take that quote and come up with some fun theories about how that affects our understanding of the one power and his universe, that it's more on a quantum level. So for those of you that are watching, I'd love for you to send your theory or what are the implications of that quote to our understanding of the Wheel of Time and the one power. I'd really love to know. So hopefully you go back, you get that quote, and you come up with something fun. So let's bring our first time caller in. It's Josh here. Let's talk to him. Hey, Josh, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. How are you doing tonight?
Hello?
Can you hear us?
Oh, I'm doing well. Thank you. Yes.
So what is your question? What made you want to call in tonight?
While you guys were talking about the soul-body bridge aspect, I was just wondering what your guys' thoughts would be on whether, like, the Wolf Brothers or men, people that, the Huron, or the individuals that can use some type of magic, whether they have the soul or the body that can channel, but the other aspect, like they only have one part of it instead of both parts.
Yeah, this is a great question. Great question. So we do know, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we know for a fact that talents are soul-based. Now, whether or not there's also a physical requirement for those kind of talents, like the Wolf Brother powers or the telling prophecies, viewings and such. I don't know that we ever asked Jordan if there's a physical genetic side to them. Man, I wish I knew that answer right now, because I really want to say that there is an answer to that. So any of you that are watching, I'll watch chat for that one. What do you think, Tyler? Are you familiar? Do you recall if Jordan said there was a physical genetic component similar to channeling for something like that?
No, I don't think we ever got into that level. I'm just laughing that I listed about like 14, maybe 20 different powers, and I didn't cover sniffers or viewings or prophecy. But they do kind of fit in with some of the stuff I thought. Like sniffers is really the ability to tell that something happened. It's almost like viewing, except in reverse. You're looking for stuff that's already happened, and for whatever reason, it's got this emotional component or this death of a soul component that ties it together. So you're somehow, as a sniffer, able to go around and say, I can feel where souls were hurt or killed. Other ones like viewings and prophecy really kind of deal with the space-time nature, like you're looking into the future of the pattern, kind of like the same way the Finns do. The portal stones are like it's all the different, potential realities based on every different choice ever made. That's very quantum physics based, but in the end, like these things, I think probably it's like there's three levels to what we're talking about. There's a physiological ability of something. There's something that might be encoded in your genetics. And what Jordan seemed to indicate in that earlier answer is that there's something even at a more base level that we don't understand that is probably closer to the soul, but it's even like more harder to find than your genetic ability to do something. And it's hard to tell where those things fit in, but they do seem more on the natural side of powers because they relate to just being able to look forward into the pattern or backward into the pattern. And we've seen other beings be able to do that, or there's various other mechanisms for doing that.
Okay, so there's a couple things that just came up in chat. This one really kicked off a lot of people asking. So great question, by the way, Josh. So one of the things that Smolder brought up, which was Smolder brought up that there is a connection. There is some connection when it comes to the Wolf Brothers, right? Because their eyes change color. So that does suggest some kind of soul, some kind of genetic connection. Now, whether or not that is instantiated by the soul's talent, in other words, like there's some similar thing that grows into the body, some kind of connection. So there's some quantum. I love it. Thank you. There's some quantum entanglement going on there. I love that. That's a great idea. Is there something, Lauren? Do you have any other ideas on that to share with Josh that kind of came to mind?
Yeah, I was going to ask. To go back to Josh's question. We know that we've seen people who can channel, who can also like read the pattern, right? Specifically foretelling. But have we seen, for example, a wolf brother who can also channel? I mean, we know also that some dreamers can channel. Are there examples of dreamers who can't channel? I believe there are, right? In the
yes.
IEL.
Yeah, you can be a dreamer and not be able to channel.
But what about some of these other things? I mean, things like could a channeler also access or use Mashadar, or like intermixing some of these things is kind of interesting to think about. I like the concept that maybe the people who do have access to some of these powers, like becoming a wolf brother or wolf sister. Someone asked, is there such a thing as wolf sisters? I'm assuming yes.
There is. Jordan answered that one, that there is.
Oh, he did.
Just not in this age, I believe. Okay. I think that he said something along the lines of, in this age, that hasn't been a talent that they have, but it is possible. So
I guess I like the idea that maybe if they don't have both the soul and physical access to that one power, as we mentioned, that maybe they are given other abilities or talents in place of that. That's really cool concept.
Yeah. Great question, Josh. Really appreciate that. Any final word before we let you go tonight?
No, but I'm going to be watching for a while. So
awesome. Well, we're glad to have you as a viewer.
Like all the content so far.
Oh, great. Thank you very much.
You
and
have a good evening, all of you.
You too. Bye. Yeah, I love when new callers and older callers call in. I don't want to offend our longtime viewers here, but I love hearing from new callers that just find the show and they're like, wait a second, you can call in and talk to people live about the Wheel of Time. I know. It's fun.
So cool.
Let's bring Andrew in. Hey, Andrew, how you doing, man?
Hi.
Hey,
pretty good, yourself?
Good to have you back on the show. So, what's your question?
My question more was a point is I would disagree with you about the enhancements ability. I think that their soul has a max level, whereas you can decrease it like the Finns did, or Stilling did, and when they came back, they couldn't heal properly. But I think that each soul is capped on its level.
So I don't believe that the strength, if you remember I said this, I believe it is a fact that the strength of the one power is not tied to a soul. So in other words, you could have a different strength in the one power per life, and I would imagine that is somewhat connected to your genes, the physical side of that connection in some parts, and maybe also basically I think the wheel also gets involved there. So I would say that Yeah, but I would agree with you that maybe in a lifetime that there is a max, if that makes sense. So maybe I would agree that the body does have a max, and you could not augment it past that potentially. Is that
Yeah,
kind of what you're basically what you're saying?
Yeah, that, and I also think that I don't think there's a way to, and I think that Tyler brought this up just as a kind of when he was going forward, he just threw a lot of things out. And one of the things I think he threw out was that you could possibly, in the future, give someone the ability to channel who wasn't born with it. And I don't think you can do that.
Yeah,
I think Slayer proves that. Because Slayer, the one thing Slayer, the Darkwood couldn't do with Slayer was make him channel, but he gave him other powers that basically said, that Slayer kind of said, well, in some ways it's better than channeling.
Yeah, definitely. I think Jordan, I want to say Jordan answered that question, that you couldn't give somebody the ability, or it might have been Sanderson that answered that question. I think that was asked of them if you could give somebody the ability to channel, and I think the answer was no. Now, we have Agenor, who does a lot of experimentation, and so could you create something that could access it in some way? I don't know, but I would agree with that you can't do that. So yeah, no, great questions.
One last quick question.
Yeah, go for it.
Is that green thing in the background, is that a Grom?
Yeah, it's a Grom. I'm trying to think where I got that. I think I got it from a Jordan Con. Yeah, this guy back here.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a little Grom. Hey man, appreciate you calling in. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep. All right. Thanks. Have a good night.
Bye. So we have another first-time caller, Megan. Let's bring her into the show. Hey, Megan, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. How you doing tonight?
Hey, good. How are you guys?
Good. So what kicked off the call? What's your question for us?
I actually tweeted earlier about the different elements of powers and like what determines which power someone is stronger in. And, I had like a somewhat of a recollection from reading the books, but I was doing a little research and, I found some information on the 13th depository about how, women are stronger, usually in, air and water, and then men stronger in earth and fire. But, it says that someone might be stronger in one power, maybe two, rarely three. So I was just curious what everyone thinks, like what determines which power someone is strongest in.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Like, is it a genetic thing?
Yeah, this is it. So I love this that you've added to the discussion here. By the way, 13th Depository, Linda Taglieri, amazing website for anyone that doesn't know about it. You must go there. She's awesome. This question of females being better at channeling certain parts of the one power. What do you think here, Tyler? Do you think that this is soul based? I mean, it seems like it's got to be physical genetics, right? If you were looking at Osangar and Arangar, they wouldn't, they're not getting better at channeling, or who's in the, I'm trying to think of who got swapped into the body. Was it? I'm trying to think. Was it Agenor? That's anyways, I can't remember.
Bethamel.
Yeah, about Bethamel, is it? Okay, yeah. So in that case, I don't think that all of a sudden it would switch. I don't know. What do you think, Tyler?
It didn't switch. Aaron
strengths
maintained the strength that they had originally, and they were channeling Sidin,
Right.
not Sidar. So I think it's important to remember, for story reasons, Robert Jordan had a very strong binary gendered view of all of these things. And when we talk about all these things, we're talking about a genetic component that for him was a binary, because that's kind of how a lot of the story was done. It's about male and female, yin and yang, black and white, up and down. It doesn't really reflect what we know about genetics and gender these days. And for story reasons, he kind of hand waved all that away because, having all of that really mucks up a really nice narrative about, how two sides have to work together to complete something. And it really kind of mucked it up. So, you have to remember that all of that was there. But overall, the female, like what it means is the soul is gendered as well. Your soul is either female or male. and a female soul in a male body can happen, but it will have the traits associated with female channeling, which is earth, not earth, air and water.
So you think that that's true? So and that's really the question, right? And I see people mentioning this in chat, right? And we know that they both are still channeling, right? Obviously, Sidene, but the question is really to that, which I think you just addressed at the end. Do you think that the strengths in the type of channeling they do change based on the physical body? So in this case, do you think that he was channeling stronger in different, parts of the one power because he was placed in a female body?
Probably not. I think he maintained the same channeling ability he had before, but it really does pose a quandary with most of the other stuff we've put forward about how these are probably genetic components. And I think this is the example that points to the fact that some part of it really is attached to your soul, maybe not the strength, but maybe the powers you're strongest in, and certainly which half of the true source you can use.
Yeah, and I don't think we have a great answer for that one. This is a great question, Megan. Thank you for bringing this up. Lauren, did you have a response on that? Do you think it goes either way there?
Yeah,
where do you fall?
I had Megan's tweet copied and pasted here, and I love that her suggestions are, could it be related to your zodiac sign, your blood type, or your personality? So I'm just going to say it's your zodiac. It's based on your zodiac.
It's the zodiac. I love that as the as a final answer there. Hey, Megan, thank you so much for tweeting, first of all, at us and being part of the show this way, and then also calling in. I really appreciate that.
Awesome question.
Hopefully you'll stick around and come
Thanks
back and
us.
see the shows for sure. Have a good evening.
Thanks, guys.
Yep, bye-bye.
You too.
To piggyback on that, though, I do think, like was said, Robert Jordan really did want to have that duality theme. That was very important to him. And so because he chose to make 5 powers, I think he wanted to have two. If you take the 4 powers outside of spirit, he wanted 2 of them to be more for males and 2 to be more for women, so that they had to work together. I think that was very important to the themes of the story. Now, if you're talking about the actual metaphysics or the reasoning for that, I guess you could say that earth and fire are a little bit more masculine in a way, right? And air and water are a little bit more feminine, maybe. Maybe that's what he was going for. I do like the idea that spirit is equal for both. It's not about the strength of the soul or the person or the individual at like a core level,
By the way, someone's bringing up this point, which is true. With Lanfear, transmigration did not bring her back, more power, right, from the damage that had been done. So, but we do know this, that people are watching. When she's reborn, that will not continue to affect the soul. So it's an interesting question of what the Finns, as I like to call them, the Ailfin and Ailfin, I just call them the Finns. Like, and I think Finland and Finns, I think that works, and it should be part of our vocabulary, and I don't know why we can't say just Finland, and we all understand what I'm talking about. It's like, come on, Finland, you get it. But what the Finns did to her is really fascinating, because transmigration did not fix the issue, but something happens after death. I don't know if it's some kind of reset. I don't know what it is, but it's not a permanent level of damage, we're told. So it's quite fascinating that to that level of degree of knowledge that Robert Jordan gave us to kind of be able to riff on all these types of things. Let's bring our. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say there was another topic I wanted to discuss, but maybe we'll do the callers and then discuss it. It has to do with the true power and the one power, so it's not entirely related there.
Yeah. So we can do that. We have 3 callers here, and what we can do is just take these 3 callers, and then we can kind of address that and kind of tie up for the evening. Let's bring Seth into the show. Hey, Seth.
Hey guys,
welcome to the Dusty Wheel.
Hey,
good. How you doing? Good.
Good to be here. I'm good. Yeah.
So what's the question you had? What was the kind of kicked off, made you want to call us?
Yeah, 2 quick things. I was thinking, when it comes to augmentations, I don't see why you couldn't get some sort of a tattoo or something like that would be a tel'aran'rhiod or an angriel, right? If you have jewelry and things like that, why couldn't you, embed something like that into you? And I want to say they're a tel'aran'rhiod that people who can't even channel can use. So, I don't know. I wouldn't extrapolate too far from there, but when it comes to the one power and the true source, the one power, we have Sidene and Sidar. what do you guys think? Is there some sort of equivalent in the true source?
So yeah, the true power, as far as we know, there isn't, and that is one interesting aspect I think of his metaphysics, which is like that's the power that you think that everyone would want. Like we don't have to worry about this whole like we're using different ones. We just all get to use the same one. It's the same learning. It's like we all go to school for the true power. We don't have to like split off into separate classes. And so that is a fascinating part. But if you don't mind, I want to go back to this idea of embedding jewelry, embedding sangreal and angreal, and not only that, like tel'aran'rhiod wells. So I'm just like I'm imagining like you just like we have in some of our gaming, right? Like you just embed a ton of wells into your body, and then you go fill up, and then you could go into a steading, you could go anywhere, and you could always have access to channeling power, And so I love the idea, and I bet people in the Age of Legends did do this, right? Why wouldn't they have, right? Like we embed stuff in our skin right now, and it's not tel'aran'rhiod, right? You can't do anything to it, but we still
wasn't there a theory back before we found out how the Finns dealt with both Sindane or Lanfear and Moraine? Wasn't there a theory that Lanfear was faking how strong she was with some sort of tel'aran'rhiod that was maybe her silver belt or something of that nature, like a well that she was using that also seemed to enhance her strength to others, but that turned out to be false?
Yeah, I think that turned out to be false. Yep.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Matt will advocate that Lanfear was always the most powerful.
Yeah, that's correct. Lanfear she was actually just hiding some of her strength.
I do love that idea though of like embedding or tattooing a tel'aran'rhiod. That is such a cool concept.
I mean, unfortunately, we don't get the Age of Legends show, and this is where I want to take this question you had, Seth, which is you've made me want that show so bad after this one, right? Like that's their first spinoff. I want to see them, and I know Robert Jordan didn't like this idea. I've read some answers recently about this because people asked him a lot about making the movie and TV series and why would he ever do a story back in the Age of Legends, and he said no, because it's just inevitable, right? You know what's going to happen. But that doesn't bother me at all. It's like, yeah, I know what's going to happen, but I still want to see it. So I'm hopeful that they don't. Would you, before we let you go, if you could pick, what would be your spinoff series for the Wheel of Time TV?
Oh man, that's a tough one there. Gosh, honestly, I might have to go with Perrin here. I just feel like there's a lot more, in my opinion. I know maybe controversial, but he's kind of a demigod by the time you get to the end here, and you never get to see him kind of be like really awesome, right? I mean, what's a battle between him and 4 or 5 wise ones going to look like, right? I don't know. But so that'd be my spinoff. I'm sure there'd be the whole thing. You'd have 3 or 4 kids. 2 of them can channel. 1 of them can channel and do the whole Wolf Brother thing. So that's what I think.
By the way, tel'aran'rhiod is what somebody, Jake, I love it. Tel'aran'rhiod.
I also love the reference to Jen Swain's nipple piercings.
Yeah. So, by the way, to your point, you just made me think of this Perrin moment as like Neo in the Matrix when he kind of flexes at the end of the Matrix and it kind of warps back in and out. That is kind of how Perrin feels by the end of the book. You're like, he's Neo. He was Neo in the Matrix at this point. Hey, Seth, thank you very much for being a first-time caller. Thank you for calling in. Thank you for watching the show, and hopefully you'll stick around and stick with us over the next year while we wait for the show to come out. So, go
absolutely.
ahead.
Till next time.
Yeah, till next time, man. Bye-bye. So, yeah, that's tel'aran'rhiod. Man, I love that. I love that you've just added to the canon of ridiculous things that we make up as fans, like Gap of Infinity. No one really knows what that is unless you just happen to just come up with a word because you want to be able to describe it. And now we have one for tattooed tel'aran'rhiod. Tel'aran'rhiod. I can't even say that. I suck at even pronouncing stuff we just came up with. So let's bring Lisa in. She's also a first-time caller. Hey, Lisa, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, great. How are you?
Good. So what kicked off your call tonight?
Well, one, I've been watching Daniel Green, and he talks about you all the time, so I came looking for you.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that, Daniel. Shout out back to Daniel. He's the man.
So, yeah, I remember reading when it was coming out, and I had to wait 2 years just to get one book out, because I was doing the paperback. So
Nice.
My question to you guys you were talking about the soul bridge and genetics with the channeling. And I kind of see that, but what about those ones that can learn how to channel?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I think the connection between what they call learners and sparkers, right? The learner has to
the one that borns with it.
Yeah, exactly. They're still included in that genetic mix, which is to say, Robert Jordan said you had to have a physical genetic capability to channel, which I think he said by the time that we get to where we're at in the third age, it's about, and you can correct me, Lauren, because I know we added this. We discussed this when you did a video on this. It was like more like 1% to 2% in the third age, but in the Age of Legends, it was like 3%. Am I remembering that correctly?
That's correct. It was about 3% of the population could channel in the Age of Legends. About 1%. And, Robert Jordan answered that differently at different times, but it was clarified at one point. 1%.
So yeah, the learners are included in that percentage, right? They still have to have the ability to, but they don't.
Or even the soul dom.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why they can control those. That's why they can control those the IDOM so well, is because they have that genetic tendency.
Exactly. Right. See, this is why it works for them and not other people, because they have that genetic capability, and Robert Jordan talks about it, because we tried to pin him down at Dragon Con 2005. That was back in the day. We tried to pin him down to give us this answer because we really wanted to believe this, which at least I did. I wanted to believe that eventually a Soldom would pretty much be a channeler over the exposure that they had with, basically channeling using their demonic.
Well, that's what happens.
But he said they said they never go over the edge. That's what he talked about. He said they just never take that step. That final step is never taken. So it suggests to me that somehow they have to still be taught, whether or not it's like some, I don't know what we call it or whatever it is, but they have to make that final connection, and they never do. So, but yeah, it's really a nuanced thing that Jordan kind of created there, but he definitely defined it for us, which was really nice. I think Neckbone in chat is saying the scaffolding is there, but the bridge has to be filled in. That's a great way to think about it. I think that's a really way. I like the comment you made, by the way, when your caller screened, you said, "Are they born with it, or maybe it's Maybelline?" I like that. So I think that maybe.
Yeah, but another thing I was looking at real fast, and then I'll let you guys go, is talking about, between the true power and the true source, and how does the dark one do all that. I always visioned the true power to be this overarching power, neither good nor bad, and that the true source is like a conduit to the main power. And that's how wise you have the true source versus the true power, because it's like an electrical outlet. You get the source to the big generator who has the true power.
Gotcha.
And then in the dark one, always he has this, like, it's a crude metaphor, but kind of like a circuit that he allows, like Mordine, to get to plug into that, because he can control that part of his.
I like that.
His
like the conduit. Yeah, he can kind of plug into that circuit. I love that. Yeah, that's a great way to think about it, for sure. Oh. Hey, Lisa, thank you so much for calling in. I really appreciate it, and thanks for being a viewer. I'm glad that Daniel sent you our way. I hope you're enjoying it, and I hope you'll come back when we do these live shows. It's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks.
Have a good one. Yep. Good night.
All right, thank you.
So we have one more caller here, and that'll be done with calls. I'm sorry, but we should get a little thing that says like no more calls tonight. But we're gonna do this last call, and then I think, Lauren, you had a comment to make, and I want to stop for a second. This shirt I'm trying to get in front of the camera. What up? I can't believe I didn't mention this. I'm like this. My things are for it. Anyways, this T-shirt came from John from the. Thank you so much, John. I've been wearing it the entire time, and I finally looked at myself in the camera and I'm like, oh yeah, John, shoot. Thank you so much for sending this. If you don't know John from the What Up channel, go check his channel out. He's a lot of fun. He puts out news like a beast. He's always up to date. I like bringing him on, talking about kind of what's happening lately, because I feel like I'm not catching every single piece of news. You just can't these days. There's just so much on Instagram and Twitter and everywhere. So yeah, John from What Up, thank you very much for the T-shirt. It's awesome. It will be one of my stock black T-shirts that everyone probably has noticed at this point that I wear in all the shows. So I probably need a larger closet full of these because I feel bad. Like I think it's like the same 5 black T-shirts every time. I'm always like, which one? So
He's
thanks a lot, John.
out a free WOT Up T-shirt when he hits 2,500 subscribers, and I think he's really, really close.
He's getting really
if you
close. Yeah.
Subscribed.
By the way, yeah, they people want to see the Grom. Can you see him? He's there.
Oh, that's so
cool. That's hilarious. Yeah, everyone's mentioning, for those of you that are listening to this, everyone's mentioning the fact that we have a bookcase now. I think I saw Dana make a comment, or somebody, I don't want to malign anybody, that maybe it's a little bit too busy. I'll pass that on to tech, the production set crew here, let them know. I don't think they agree necessarily with you. I heard some noises back there. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, it actually fills in this little gap underneath the sign, the Dusty Wheel sign that Lauren gifted us back. Was it like, I don't know, it's a couple months ago now. So yeah, the sign and now the bookshelf, I think it all looks fun. So let's bring Guy in. We've made him wait long enough. He's also a first-time caller, and he has a fun topic. So let's bring him in. Awesome. Guy, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. How you doing tonight?
Doing good. I was just on a walk, so I figured I'd call while I was listening.
Awesome. Yeah, go for it.
I am currently re-listening to the books, and currently I'm got about an hour left on book 7. But I've noticed little things hinting, that the first age and even the Age of Legends, that they've hinted about, the other worlds and then the stars with other worlds. And then I've also read and listened to this theory that the first age is kind of Earth, but at a very futuristic utopia type stage. And then, so what sparked my kind of question for the discussion was when talking about like the quantum theories and everything like that, going into that, what if basically we evolved to that point in that first stage where our understanding of that quantum and everything basically went into the human evolution because of our deep understanding of that. And then that's what evolved into being able to use the one power.
I love it. Yeah, that's a great connection to it, which is eventually physics, which would make sense that Robert Jordan, obviously he had some knowledge in that area, and he obviously built it into part of the world. And the idea that the end of the first age related to investigation into quantum, entanglement, everything having to do with the quantum at a quantum level, and that one of the things that came out of that was the ability to channel. Although, like Robert Jordan said, a lot of people died, in trying to channel and trying to figure out how to use this. So yeah, I love the idea of tying the physics, the quantum answer that Robert Jordan just gave, into being a first channeler and having that be related. I want to build that theory out. I think that's a totally legit idea. I like that a lot. By the way, was there any other? So do you know a lot about kind of quantum mechanics and such, or is that something you study? Or
I do not. Okay. I am an electrician.
Okay. I wasn't sure. I was like, oh shit.
As far as my quantum theories go, it's about as far as I can learn from Big Bang Theory. So.
No, that's absolutely true. And that's one thing I brought up in a recent video, which is we don't know when we get to this turning how many turnings have existed. And I guess Nablus would say infinite amount of turnings has already existed. But yes, definitely Robert Jordan modeled the idea that in the 7 ages, the first one, or what we call the first age from this turning, he would say what we would call the first age, but maybe it's the 6th age and some other view of the turnings. But the first age definitely being our age and ending in some form or fashion. And we don't know exactly how it ended, but I love the idea that maybe it ended in some quantum mechanics related or something apocalyptic that came out of it, and we got channeling from that. So hey, thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
I think there's a lot of interviews where he says that was one of his conceits, is that our current world is the first age. And we always have a tendency to think, and the second age is right around the corner, but for all we know, we're just barely getting started into the first age.
Right.
We do know from the Big White Book that the portal stones were in use in the second age, and they are rumored to have come from the first age. So the portal stones to the other worlds would be what you're talking about in your question.
Yeah,
we have time to develop that right now.
Yeah, I won't belabor the point, but yeah, there's a lot of metaphysics around how long ages might exist in Robert Jordan's world as compared to what we think about linear time. But Guy, thank you very much for taking a walk and listening to our show. That's awesome. And thank you for calling in. And sorry we had
problem.
a good 15-minute wait there, but I appreciate you staying online. And hopefully you'll keep on watching us here as the year progresses. Hey, have a good evening, okay?
I found you about a month ago, and it's been great.
Awesome. I'm so glad you're still watching and enjoying it. Hey, we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Yeah, so great. So what I was going to add on to that was we don't have linear time here. There's no belief that this world that Robert Jordan created with the wheel has actually been around for millions of years. That's not part of Robert Jordan's metaphysics. So I do wonder, back to your point, like I wish somebody would have asked him, like, can you give us an idea of how long the first age went? Whether or not he would have said, oh, it was like 3,000 years and it started off with this moment, because the wheel, right, is controlling all this. The wheel's been given like a schematic for how this all turns out. And you can't do a one-to-one comparison with our world. You should never think about this as like, billions of years. So
no. It's when the seventh agers plant all the fossils for us.
Exactly. Okay, Lauren, here's the moment. For those of you who are watching at home, hopefully, again, you've watched this and liked it. Please subscribe to us, like the video. If you're watching on Facebook or Twitter and you haven't come over to YouTube, we really appreciate it. It just helps support us getting up every day, thinking about making new shows. You can ask Lauren this, right? Just having subscribers come in, talk about us, leave comments, and tell us what they've liked and engage with us. That just makes us want to keep going. So please go to Lauren's channel. You'll find it in the description. Go over there, watch his videos. They're amazing. They're extremely time consuming. And I know, because I've participated a little bit with him on some of the scripting for it, and it's extremely detailed and it's a really well done thing. So please go, subscribe to him. Come over here if you will. And we're just tying up for the night. We typically go just about an hour and a half. So Lauren, let me leave it with you. What's the comment? What's the thing you wanted to bring up?
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for the plug. I appreciate it. And I'm grateful to be here. This was a lot of fun. We went down some roads that I wasn't anticipating, and I had a great time. So thank you. One of the things I wanted to talk about really quick is I've noticed a bit of a misconception from some fans that think that the one power is only used for creation or creating things, and the true power is only used for destruction or destroying things. And I would say, I'm curious what your thoughts are on that, but also from my research, I feel like neither of them can completely 100% destroy something. What I mean by that is balefire is there was a misconception for a long time by a lot of fans, right, that balefire destroyed the person permanently and their soul. We know that that's no longer the case. That's not true. That was never the case. It was just a little confusing with the way Robert Jordan answered some questions. But also, when Rand confronts the Dark One, he says, you were never going to completely destroy everything. You were just going to create the wheel in your own way. It implies to me, is what I'm trying to get to, is that the true power is also a creative force. For example, the true power was used in the creation of the Trollocs and the Myrddraal. And the one power, the question is, can things be permanently destroyed? For example, we know that Hopper, when dying in the dream, he's permanently gone, right? We think. That's than that, can things be permanently destroyed? That's my question.
So Robert Jordan, I want to say yes, because I believe that they can, but he talks about, for example, like souls can be warped in such a way that they don't get reset, right? They're just, and he talks about like the souls of Trollocs and such being these warped little things that are hard to even call souls. Like we know that at some level creation can be changed in such a way that it can't just all be reset. Now, I do want to bring up this concept, right? They always, because you're going down this road of balefire, and they're always worried that too much balefire is going to destroy the pattern. Right. But the wheel weaves the pattern. So honestly, they're right. It would have destroyed them, but I don't believe that even balefire can't destroy the wheel, and I don't believe it can. And what I mean by that is, I believe the wheel would, like restart, and it would spin a new pattern out because the old pattern was destroyed. In other words, I don't think that there's a direct one-to-one relationship between, but it would destroy them, right? Like they would destroy their reality. Tyler, do you believe that that's true, that Balefire can't destroy the wheel, but it can destroy the pattern?
The wheel is outside the pattern, like the Dark One, the creator, the pattern the plan for the pattern, and I forget the other one, but these are all outside of like reality as we understand it. So part of what the Dark One is looking for is to break everything, and short of completely annihilating it, well, I think he probably prefers that we break it ourselves, because that brings even more joy, that we've been so selfish to just not think of the consequences of our actions. So I think it's possible to break it in a lot of different ways, but there's no reason to think that the wheel can't accommodate the challenges of Balefire, and that there's not some plan that says when 20% of the pattern gets Balefired, enact plan Omegatron. And
yeah, exactly. Like the wheel has the control to be like, okay, this isn't going. Nope, we're stopping.
We anticipated some Balefire in here, and don't worry, we've covered that on page 72.
Yeah, that's when the wheel sends down all the heroes ever, and they just go annihilate everyone that's doing all the Balefire. Like, stop. Yeah. But I will say this to you: I actually do believe that the Dark One has the power to destroy the wheel. I think, if this makes sense, that's why the creator had to imprison him. The creator had to imprison the Dark One in order to create the wheel and enable the wheel to survive. Because I think that the Dark One would have destroyed the wheel if not. In other words, that's my theory. I know that we have a lot of disagreement in this regard. I think the idea that the Dark One could ever get out and do this, he hasn't, and it's been infinite time. That means it's impossible. But I still believe, maybe I'm just a glutton for holding on to a theory, but I still believe it's possible. So, anything else before we go that you want to leave? Lauren, a note to the fans. Anything else, Tyler?
I might just say that I made a diagram covering what Lauren was talking about. I don't know if we can see it here. You've got your two forces pushing in opposite directions, but of course, if you offset them a bit, they rotate. Like they make rotational force, and that's how men and women working together get stuff done. But the true power is really just a drill doing the same thing. And
I wish everyone
could turn everything, but it makes a hole in the middle and causes a bit of damage. So they're two different ways of doing the same thing. One uses your natural forces. One really comes in from outside and achieves the same result, but not the way you want it. And I think that's how I look at the true power and the one power based on all the descriptions in the story.
Interesting.
That was awesome, by the way. Thanks for
that was so great.
That's what he's like. Tyler's like, Matt is so boring. I am making this drawing. Like that was awesome. So Lauren, any last words before we close?
So one of the things I mentioned in my video is the law of conservation of mass, and I think Robert Jordan absolutely believed in some of those principles. Whether or not he applied them to his fantasy world is questionable, but I do think that he had this concept that nothing can be truly destroyed, and that we could argue that forever. I wanted to say one last thing, and that is Taint tel'aran'rhiod.
Taint tel'aran'rhiod, yes.
Somebody posted that.
Tel'aran'rhiod and Taint tel'aran'rhiod. Those are the two words I'm going to leave. Thank you very much for leaving us with those words. This has been a lot of fun. I hope you guys have enjoyed. This is one of these series we love to do deep dives. I love it when Lauren finishes a video because it just gives us a great kind of foundation of knowledge to build off of and just dig into the stuff Jordan said and have a lot of fun with these things. So make sure, again, last note, like the video, go check out the videos on Lauren's side. And tomorrow we will be back. Remember, Taylor, if you want to throw that screen up there one more time, we'll be back celebrating with you, all the viewers, 5,000 subscribers. So grateful for you coming over and subscribing to us. We really appreciate the support. We can't wait to keep on doing this for the next years, many decade, whatever, however long this lasts, and you guys keep coming back and chatting with us and leaving us comments and stuff. So we really appreciate that. And remember, we'll be back also on Sunday, and we're going to have a little live adaptation. And I'll leave you this last note. For those of you that have stuck around, you watched to this last note, I did a little research last night on something that I'll reveal to you tomorrow. So hopefully you'll come back. It's a little fun little research I did, little research project that I like to do. I could tell my family wasn't excited about it because they just looked over at me and they saw me sitting in front of my computer for about 4 or 5 hours and they're just like, I don't know what he's doing. But I found something that I think is a lot of fun, some things. But so I'll share that tomorrow night. Come back, celebrate. It's an Ask Me Anything situation. I look forward to reading your comments and just answering. If you have any questions about the show, what we do, me, it doesn't really matter. Pretty much, I will answer 99.99% of the questions you ask. I'm sure there'll be one that I won't want to answer or something to that effect. So I hope you'll show up with us. And as we say around here at the Dusty Wheel, good night and smash to black.
If you want news and rumors that